About a week ago, the Member of Parliament of Langata constituency, Felix Odiwuor, commonly known as Jalas, had an hour-long interview with his former radio counterpart, Alex Makideu, to discuss about his experience in politics since he was elected in 2022. What got my attention during the 60-minute interview is the amount of money that Jalas used during his campaign. In his own words, he spent about 30 million shillings just to get an ODM ticket, and another 100 plus million for him to win the MP seat. In another interview with Obina, Jalango's friend MC Jesse stated that he spent about 58 million shillings so as he could get a UDA ticket for MP of South Imenti constituency, which eventually flopped due to conflict of interest within the party. It is no surprise that to run for any political seat in Kenya, one needs to have money. A shitload of money. A research conducted by the Institute for Development Studies in 2022 showed that to run for any political seat in Kenya, excluding the MCA seat, the average amount needed is about $232,000 and above. This expensive nature of running for a political seat in our country raises the question as to why it is expensive and how can the cost be brought down so as to give any aspiring leader the chance to get a political seat despite his or her financial status. Since the return of multi-party politics in 1992, politics in Kenya became very competitive. The amenities that came along with holding a political seat motivated a lot of aspiring politicians to do everything in their ability to convince the voters to vote for them. The Kenyan public interest when it comes to politics, especially Generation X, Boomers, and some millennials, hasn't always been about what a politician will do for them if elected. No, because as a lower middle income country, where the average mwananchi earns less than $10 a day, most aren't concerned about the development of the nation. Rather, their concern is about making it through the day. And time after time, Kenyans have come to understand that the manifestos that politicians outline during their campaigns, most aren't feasible. This is what then drives the voters to make much out of the campaign season by demanding handouts from politicians during matangas, community events, or political meetings. In return, politicians increase their probability of being elected or being re-elected into office during election day. It is literally an exchange of votes for handouts. It's true that in some cases people are elected without dashing out money, but this rarely happens in Kenyan commercialized politics. As the number one economy in the region, Kenyans are business savvy. When electioneering period is around the corner, most Kenyans adjust their businesses to serve the political period. Commodity prices for merchandise, transport services, and fuel during the campaign period are very high. This ultimately drives up the cost of campaigning. An estimation that Jalas gave during the interview is that 3 billion shillings is spent by a presidential candidate to buy merchandise for a target audience of 10 million people. This, however, grows the economy because a lot of money is in circulation. In the past 5 years, Kenya's GDP was at its highest in 2022, which was the election year. The third reason as to why campaigning is costly, it is because of party elections. Most aspirants tend to use a dominant political party to win an election. This, however, is accompanied with a lot of competition, where aspirants are determined to outspend each other during party campaigns so as to secure a party ticket. For example, the case of MC Jesse, he spent close to 60 million shillings during the UDA party primaries, only for him to lose the ticket because of a decision of a high-ranking party official. In the Election Campaigning Financing Act of 2013, it only limits the revenue sources of candidates. What it does not do, it is to cap the amount of funds that a candidate should get from each of the revenue source. What this does is that it allows unlimited spending for a campaign, hence creating an unlevel playing field. because the chances of person A who is spending 30 billion shillings to win the presidency is higher than that of person B who is spending just 50 million shillings. Now, the consequences that these variables cause is that number 1, politics in Kenya is exclusively for the filthy rich. Your good ideas, your properly crafted manifesto, your integrity, they do not matter here, okay? You can take them to your nyanyes, but as long as you have chums, money, ganji, you automatically qualify to run for office. And this is the reason why the richest people in Kenya are usually politicians. A person like Ruto is worth a couple $2 billion, together with people like Baba, Uhuru, Rigiji, and many others. Number 2, running for a political seat becomes an investment. Because a lot of money is spent trying to win an election, most politicians' goal after winning an election is to recuperate the money they spent during campaign. They spend most of their time in office scrambling for lucrative government contracts and tenders, thus neglecting their constitutional obligations. Number 3, kleptocracy becomes the order of the day. Since being rich is the merit for being elected, most people who are capable of good governance but lack the resources are sidelined, hence leaving Kenyans under the mercy of the rich and powerful, who in most cases fail to do what is right. They end up stealing public money and invest the loot elsewhere. Number 5, economic decline. Since the people in power care less about the citizens, most policies that are made in the august house become detrimental to the nation's growth. Right now, Kenya is grappling with a huge debt problem, all because of the lack of political goodwill. If somehow the cost of running for a political seat can be brought down, the chances of getting good leaders who lack the resources are increased. Since the Gen Z protest of last year, a lot of Kenyans have come to the realization that electing people of integrity is the way to go. Because the more we continue electing people because they gave us handouts and non-feasible plans during campaigns, we end up bearing the brunt when the same politicians neglect public duty for personal gain. Since Maraga declared his presidential bid about a month ago, he stated that he did not have enough resources to run a successful presidential campaign. Rather, he will appeal to Kenyans for contributions. Since he put up his contribution website some few days ago, he has raised over 500,000 Kenyan shillings. To many, this might not seem like a lot of money, but it tells you that Kenyans are now willing to fund candidates that they trust. Some few months ago, Morara Kebaso stated that contributions is the future of campaign financing, because that is the way Kenyans can be able to elect clean leaders who will hold the corrupt ones accountable without any fear of blackmail.
Hatutawacha mambo ya contribution, that is the future. Contribution for campaign financing is the future of politics. So the future is in raising funds from the public. For as long as we let politicians steal money from public funds na wanakuja kuitumia kwa campaign, we'll always fail.
The expensive nature of Kenyan politics isn't uniquely Kenyan, but an African thing. Unlike first world countries like the US and Western European countries where candidates campaign using public contributions, here in Africa, it is the other way around. And you can see the results of these two different philosophies. On one hand, you have governments that work for the people because accountability is too high. While on the other hand, you have governments that work for the politicians because there is no accountability. For Kenya to have a good leadership system, Kenyans must first change their mindset when it comes to electing people. The merit should no longer be about the amount of money a person is willing to dash out or the tribal affiliation, but whether one has a good character, so that if elected, they will have the political goodwill. When we start reasoning this way as a people, our current economic hardship will be nothing but a passing crowd, because we will be able to elect good people who will create policies that will offer solutions to the problems that we face as a nation.